Where in the Word should we go to find the answer? No. We go to Ezekiel chapter 28. Almost said it. He almost said it. That one. That's funny. Oh, in a big house, there's all kind of vessels. That's what the Lord said. You there? Ezekiel chapter 28 and yeah. Let's start at verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. Thou wast in Eden, the garden of God. Who are we talking about? This king of Tyrus, the scripture said he was sealed up the sum, perfect in beauty, right? And then it declares that this person was in Eden, the garden of God. And look at the script. Every precious stone was thy covering. The sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, emerald, carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in all thy ways from the day thou wert created, till iniquity was found in thee. Who are we talking about? First of all, he was a created being. He's identified as an anointed cherub, and the whole lineage or succession or grouping of cherubim angels are always connected to the presence and the throne of God. He was the anointed cherub that covered. So we are talking about Lucifer before he fell. And he was in this garden before the one God planted called Eden. And the one God planted was a mirror of the one that was in eternity. Y'all still here? Now, I want you to see, though, what the original looked like. So you had this person, this cherub, this angel that was created, and God said he sealed up the sun. How would you like that after your day? Sealed up the sun. The chips, the Lays, the Diet Pepsi, the macaroni and cheese with greens, the cornbread, and fried chicken. Wow. What kind of grease you gonna fry that chicken in? Huh? Y'all remember lard? This is a commercial. Now, before Crisco, there was lard. Old school folk fried stuff in lard. So we were having a conversation over the last couple of days about how different stuff tastes now because the lard came from fat out of that oink oink. Right? Crisco is vegetable. Right? You still use lard? We're going to come down on the farm. What you say, what if you can fry some good chicken, all golden brown and crispy and crumbly? See? So you can't talk about it. All right, commercial's over. Ads closed. Let's get back. That was quick with it. I like that about us. We can have fun right in the middle of it. So this being was the elite of everything that God created up to this point. So when you think about him and look at the description, every precious stone was his covering. Doesn't that sound like this ephod and breastplate that the high priest would wear? And then it talks about the workmanship of his pipes and tabrets. It was prepared where? It was, no, you gotta read a little bit slower. It says, the workmanship of thy tabrets and pipes was prepared in thee. It was in him. Okay, so the best illustration that I can give you of what this looked like in this angel, he would have been like a mixing board that gathered all the praise and glory and worship from all the other ranks of angels, and somehow it came through his being and he offered it to God. Oh, I wish y'all could catch that in the spirit. Imagine God said, I want to take all the worship of the earth and flood it all through your gates, and then you bring it to me. Wow, it ought to change. You say, I'm a worship leader. Y'all didn't say it. I'm a worship leader. So here's this music coming in and out of it. Said he had tabrets and pipes that were in his makeup. So there was a sound that came out of him. Asher David said, I don't hear nothing. There should be a sound coming out of you. You don't need instruments per se. You are the instruments. All right? And then it says, you are the anointed cherub that covereth. Well, what did he cover? The presence and the seat of God. Right? And God said, I have set thee so. You was upon the holy mountain of God. Well, what mountain is he talking about? Well, if we go to Hebrews, we know that mountain was called Zion. That's where God reigns from. And this being was upon this mountain. And he walked up and down in the midst of and who do you think that symbolized? These stones that were going to be burned and tried and go through stuff. Who do you think those things? Come on, raise your hand. He's talking about you. So the enemy, Lucifer, before he fell, had this insight. He was a picture of what God was going to do in us in the earth realm. Now can you see why he so wanted to make sure we fail? He couldn't believe God was going to share all that glory and honor with a flesh instrument. You got a picture of that? So now keep going. It says, you was perfect until from the day that I created thee until now. Iniquity is not the sin. It's the thing in you that's prone, propensity. It's the thing in you that's prone to yield to it. Just like they're finding out now that iniquities are inherited. There's certain traits in you that make you vulnerable to certain things. It started off in health, right? You go to the doctor, they say, how many people in your family had this? And you say this and this. And based upon how many are in your lineage, they say, well, you have this percentage of falling into the same category. Now they're understanding that just as it's true for health, it is also true for weaknesses and vulnerabilities. There's certain things in you that you are just prone to do because it's in your background. So if you are a player, go back, check your grandma or granddad. Right? It's in there. I mean, naturally, you go back and look at David. David got some stuff and some grandmas and great grandmas that just made the atmosphere fertile for David to be. You got it. You got me? What was the vulnerability? Pride. So God plants this garden that is a mirror of what was in heaven. And he sets two trees down in the garden that suggested choice. Right. Anybody intrigued? Am I the only one having a good time with this? So we just want you to get on to it, get on to it. But if I get on to it, you won't know how I got there. Okay. Ready? So let's go back then and let's consider these words in Genesis 1:29 and Genesis 1:11 called fruit or seed yielding fruit. Okay? Because when we think of seed yielding fruit, of course we think of produce. Mm-hmm. But what about offspring?
Yeah.
When God was saying it to Adam with the them in it, he said, be fruitful and multiply. He was thinking of offspring. Those of us that are parents on this Mothers and Others Day, do you see something in you, in your offspring, that ain't necessarily coming off that good tree?
Yes.
All right? For those of you that don't have children, can you remember characteristics in your parents, your mom and dad, and you say, boy, I got that on us. I know where that comes from. Right? Now, another translation of this word fruit in this original text is the word fruit, but it's speaking of actions.
Okay.
It's not talking about produce. It's not talking about offspring. It's not talking about children. It's talking about actions that you have inherited. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, that's fruit. Let's look at the word yield. To make, to act with in effect, to be prepared, to scatter, to sow, producing, to be sown as if to become pregnant, to produce seed. So God said in the yielding, it's like you're sowing intentionally to impregnate something so that it could bring forth something else. So here was God speaking to creation, setting something inside of them called seed that when released, its target was to produce something after that original image.
Right.
So even though we suffered a fall, that seed is still going to reproduce after what is the most influential supply it is tapped into. So if you're tapped into bad ground, you're going to reproduce bad stuff. If you tapped into good ground, you're going to reproduce good stuff. But to shut one of them off is really enmity. I'll show you that in the Word. You ready? Yeah. Meat, food. All right? So 2 trees are being set up in the garden. And what are the function of these 2 trees? One's called the tree of, and the other one's called the, no. And you know what we say? Well, if God didn't want me to fall, why did he put the tree up in there? Right? God could have just settled this right away. Why you put the tree up in there? Why give me the choice? The greatest part of this redemptive story is how God reroutes choice. He does it all the time. All right? So why the 2 trees? And why make them both look good? If it was an ugly tree, we wouldn't have touched the tree. Sure we would. Ugly is the new beautiful. You know, all this stuff is flipping. You know, 60 is the new 40. Y'all don't know that? Come on. Sure it is. What are you saying? Well, if God had not made it look so good and made it not look so presentable, it wouldn't have been a struggle. But see, when God says good to be looked on, he's not just talking about taste and touch and visual, right? Another word is added to its description. It's called desire. One of these trees represented something that messed with your desire. Desire on the godly side is just that, desire. But desire growing on the bad tree is lust. So what was going on when, the woman started talking? That's not to suggest it was the woman's fault, because brother man should have been taking care of his business. That's right. There you go. I knew that would help you. There you go. Let the record reflect. Get it right. If he was supposed to be the covering, he should have been right there listening to the conversation anyway. I'm in agreement with that. He should have told her no, too. All right? What did the tree of life do? The tree of life sustained that divine nature that was on the inside of them. The tree of life is almost a symbol of what communion is to us right now. The more we eat of it, the more we partake of it, the more we get changed, are kept into this divine nature. So even though they was walking in the glory, walking in the honor, they didn't need clothes, because glory was their clothing. It sustained that divine thing that was on the inside of them. But what did the tree of knowledge of good and evil do for them? Anybody know? Well, y'all gonna have to talk back if you want me to finish today. What did it do?
It gave them the knowledge of good and evil.
No. 1 Corinthians 8 says, now, God was never against them getting knowledge. God was against them getting knowledge outside of him, the proper channel. So knowledge without God is only going to puff you up. That's what 1 Corinthians chapter 8 says. Knowledge will puff you up. Love edifies, but knowledge puffs you. All right? So here was something in the tree that stirred a desire for them to be independent from God.
That's it.
Right? All right, Matthew 12:33 says this. How we looking? All right, give me a few minutes. We're going to wrap this up. Matthew 12:33 says this. It says, a tree is known by its fruit. Right? So what grows, or the yield, or the produce, or the offspring of my tree, right, really points to what kind of tree I always was. Right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm looking at my tree and I have all this fruit growing, it's telling me where my root system is. Right? If I keep up a whole lot of mess all the time, I dwell in messy soil. Right? So here is the danger of fruit inspectors. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Who am I talking about? Church folk. Church folk, we are some of the best uneducated. We ain't been trained correctly. We have not finished any schooling for it, but we always know what the fruit is growing on the tree. We don't have an inspector's license. Huh? We know nothing about how the tree has developed, but we can point out the fruit, say something wrong with that tree. Well, there's something wrong with the tree long before we see the fruit. But we don't discern that. Because if we really could discern what was wrong with the tree before the fruit, we would change what we're doing right now.
Right.
Uh-huh. Is that right? So, I got another short little demo. Ready? John 15 says this. Jesus is talking about vines, orchards, vineyards. And he talks about abiding in me and I in you. He said, now, if you abide in me, we're going to bear some fruit. And just as you are I'm paraphrasing, just as you become in that fruit-producing season, I start cutting back some of your limbs, or pruning you, so that you can bear some more fruit. And anything that's not bearing any fruit, I'm just going to take out and burn. Right? Now, he says, now I desire that you bear fruit, but in order for you to bear fruit, you have to abide. So my ability to yield godly fruit is connected to the depth that I abide in him. If I'm not pleased with the amount of stuff growing on my tree, I should check what I'm dwelling in. It ain't the preacher's fault. Right? So I should check my root system. So what am I abiding in? Well, Psalms 1 said we have to be planted by the rivers of water. But what if we're planted by some other stuff? Huh? And guess what's growing on your tree? Something that Mother Nature never intended. Called fruit blends. Huh? Fruit blends. Y'all never heard about that? Something you never heard the line, Mother Nature never intended? Well, some of the wild crossbreeding growing on your tree, Mother Nature never intended that to be grown on your tree. You don't know if it was a crab or an apple. So now we got a crab apple. You know, they keep mixing stuff, coming up with new names to put on some of the stuff, and you don't know what is it? What is that? You don't know what to do with it. Peel it, slice it, boil it. You don't know what it is. It look kind of y'all don't. See, coming up in my day, we had tangerines. Then all this other stuff started coming out. I didn't know nothing about, huh? Yeah, not a little cutie, but miniolas. I don't remember that kind of stuff. Huh? I mean, just kind of weird stuff they don't do together. And for real, I don't know what to do with it. How do you prepare it? Do you prepare it? Huh? Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. All right, so all of this is somebody's careful blending or post germinating of seeds that it doesn't happen naturally. All right, somebody has stepped in it and just put another process in it. So imagine some of the stuff growing on your tree. We don't know who or what it looks like. Right? So what if God already knew when the trees were planted? I know that if you eat of this tree, and here's the danger, you're not going to drop a seed in the ground and get fruit next week. You might not even see it the first year. Yeah. Some 3 years, 4 years out before you see anything edible on that tree. Which means a bad thing can be planted in you and not show up to your children. Ooh, we up at the root now. See, that got my attention. I ain't having nothing. Well, you had you. Somebody had you. It's already in you. Come on. It just don't look at the bad side. I want you to consider maybe I should be a little bit more discerning what I'm looking at, what I'm eating of, and what I'm planted in if I'm going to be healthy. And not just for what's in me, but for them that are assigned to come through my gate. I want them to get something edible. Right? Good question. Write this down. Okay? Ask the people that you work with, go to school with, what do they feel about you when you leave the room? You said, boy, why would you ask us something like that on Mother's Day? Because we want to know what they really say about us when we leave their presence.
No, we don't.
Right? What impression did we leave on them? How did they really feel? You know, we go, we go to my daughter's shop, sit up there in her chair, and she does all these wonders to our pieces. And then we leave. And what does she say about it? That bishop, Lord have mercy. I couldn't get him out of that chair fast enough. Get on my last 3 nerves. Just come on. I'm gonna learn some Chinese because I'm gonna find out what they're saying about me. I'm gonna find out what they're saying about me. And I'm saying, you should be back. Take care. What is wrong with you? I'm just saying. Do you wish that people would really be honest about what they really feel in your presence? Not to toot a horn, but to say, I really need to make some changes because if I left that type of impression, I don't want to be that. The promise is that there's a seed in the woman that's going to bruise the serpent's head. There's also a seed in the serpent that's going to bruise the woman's heel. What was he speaking of? What was connected to these seeds that are both powerful, that they both have a function? One that's going to bruise the head, the other one's going to bruise the heel. That's when we get back together. Happy Mother's and Mother's Day to you. On your feet.